The erratic rainfall patterns and rising temperatures are pushing communities to the brink, with flooding and droughts posing a constant danger to the global economy. The looming catastrophe is threatening the environment and lives.
If you say the first share of the climate change or the climate variability, it has been with us every year, and this year the rainfall season will still have its first share.
Keep the warming temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius.
It indicated that earthquake can also increase.
Which would tell you that yes, an earthquake is coming.
I, Kekubotin, now invite you to join me to unveil the dual dangers, impact of climate change on flooding and earthquakes using scientific research and investigation. Of all the planets in the solar system, Earth is unique in its ability to support life. As a result, it serves as our home and our environment, providing the necessary conditions for a diverse range of organisms to thrive. However, this beautiful planet, Earth, has been profoundly affected by carbon emissions, heat-trapping greenhouse gas concentrations, degradations, deforestation, and pollution, among other factors. These elements are already having widespread effects on the environment, a phenomenon caused by human activities, christened climate change by scientists. As population keep increasing, most people have settled at places with very deplorable conditions for human settlement, thereby exposing them to many diseases. It is a well-established fact that the world is facing the wrath of climate change, but the African continent has been profoundly classified as the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Located in West Africa is Ghana, a beautiful country with its capital city, Accra, where many citizens have settled in environments that can be considered hazardous. Some of these areas could be classified as death traps. The waterlogged areas are often filled illegally with refuse to reclaim the land before any construction can commence. Buildings erected on such land tend to have weak foundations, and many develop cracks over time, posing a risk of collapse. The residents of these places often experience psychological trauma when they become aware of the looming danger posed by climate change.
Because it's only was as a bola. I have a beer walk by high bola.
A man, I do say.
Oh, a month, no, first no day, Tengana. As you see, I was not to, but now I'm cover like 3 years.
Nina, toilet in the
toilet in your shower soon. It's soon. Obey to me, free. No, what it take away. Say, a baby in a womb, but a bee. Oh, it's a shana like if you are no more from Kasana, like Musumu boy.
In actual fact, when it becomes a problem which we don't know how to solve.
Isaac Kunwan Wambele, a geoscientist, deals with geological aspects of the earth.
Usually, it's the rocks that weather to form the various materials that we have, whether it's soil, it's clay, it's laterite, it is the rocks that weather to form those things. And you realize that in a lot of cases, the waterlogged areas are usually areas overlain by various types of clay. And because of that, penetration is low and they become waterlogged. Once they are waterlogged, it means that if you are to do development in those areas, you must be very careful because the clay is not as strong.
An environmental and climate scientist, Dr. Henry Kokofu, highlighted the pressing environmental issues related to climate change.
Urbanization is nothing bad, but unplanned urbanization is the issue. Where we do not have dedicated land for development, delineating the physical structures from the natural ecosystems that will serve its purpose of helping mitigate climate change, then you have a problem. So you go to advanced countries, economies that are doing well, they have strict land spatial planning mechanisms that tells you can build here, you cannot build there. Even when you've built, you have got to incorporate some form of green or vegetation cover, tree planting, shrubs, and other things that will augment the natural systems to work. So, by our way of doing things, that goes out again to attitude now, by way of not adhering to regulations, by way of not enforcing existing regulations, have all contributed to that. So if people are talking about urbanization and climate change, it all boils down to planning. If we do plan and plan well, employment of technology.
Eric Kofi Afenope, Deputy Director in charge of climate change at the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development.
So poverty is also, bringing a lot of challenges. So I'm just mentioning this because if government would have to address, issues of flood vis-a-vis how human beings haphazardly get exposed to this, then it means that we need to address even some issues that are indirect, not just the direct issue. We need to address some of the root causes, things that make people difficult to go by certain situations, certain compliances, to do what is right. We need to address some of the issues psychologically, socially, economically.
Timothy Osafu Efum, Director of Public Relations at the Ghana National Fire Service, expressed concerns about inappropriate structures and land demarcations.
One method of extinguishing fire is what we call starvation. So we can decide to demolish some of the buildings so that it will only isolate that structure that is on fire. So these are some of the methods that we use when we get to areas like this that are inaccessible for the fire tenders to get to.
In 2010, some children were playing near structures of Bobeisi in Accra. Tragically, one of the buildings collapsed, resulting in serious injury to a young boy. The boy's father, who chose to remain anonymous, expressed deep concern.
And then we say so I could 15 years cry to me I could transfer a book and then a touch makaka.
Oban kwana sa di eto no ana.
Do no mo do but me ba ne die ni nua ba ko kan but ni nua nje we mpra kase. But me ba ne die prep oni na eto ni kase. I am titi sen ko dey ko prepare but me dey me fa nkoma dwe. The crew bia na say oman bia no na broni bia so no ohin na ye in charge. Two passes here, be see on here so na say so bi kura dey kura kwa ohin ni movie.
Painstaking observation has clearly shown that environmental pollution is significantly exacerbated by improper refuse disposal, inadequate drainage systems, and to a large extent, poor town planning. Regrettably, the consequences of these actions are not limited to environment alone. It is estimated that from 1974 to 2023, more than 1,800 buildings collapsed due to substandard construction practices, killing and injuring thousands of people.
With the collapsing structures,
What cost?
A number of those collapses, the moment we hear of it, we usually send our technical team. We send a team of geologists and geotechnical engineers to the site to look at, investigate, and see what could be the possible cause of those structures. Remember that it may not just be the subsurface that has caused the failure.
Okay.
It could also be the actual construction.
Okay.
It could be the type of material used. So when it gets to those ones, we are handicapped. But when it comes to issues of the subsoil, which deals with the geology, then we are able to advise and we are able to speak to the condition on the ground. And a number of the failures that occurred from our preliminary investigation showed otherwise. So we think that maybe people are not constructing according to the design or not using the right type of professionals and even the materials.
Human activities are making natural climate change worse, leading to rising temperatures, extreme weather, expanding deserts, and poor air and food quality. These changes affect our physical and mental health.
So when we talk about climate change, basically it's about emission of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. You know, when fires occur, these are the substances that are emitted into the atmosphere.
And the greenhouse gases, notable among them is the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxides, and all that. So air pollution through emissions into the atmosphere that goes up there to disturb the ozone layer, which serves as a shield against the direct sun rays onto the Earth's surface.
Scientists say these emissions cause sunburn, skin cancer, and cataracts in humans, as well as damaged crops, marine life, and the planet as a whole.
And the main target is to keep the warming temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's the target. We are being told, the scientists are saying that we've already surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we may be heading towards 2 degrees Celsius, which is more dangerous, and we cannot survive under excessive high temperatures.
Of course, with climate change it will get very hot in the north, so then the most important thing you can do is keep shade, trees, but cover, to make sure you are not exposed to full sun.
Felicity Ahafianyo, a meteorologist, climatologist, and forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Agency, explained the intricate phenomenon of climate change.
Climate change more is to do with us as human beings. It's a human-induced phenomenon that is affecting us because it has to link with the global warming, whereby we know that convective rainfall depends more on energy. And as the energy available for cloud formations also increase, definitely you have the numbers of extreme weather events also increasing over the sub-region.
The extreme weather events have hit several countries, including Brazil, Burundi, Egypt, Kenya, and Ghana. In May 2024, Ghana experienced intense thunderstorms and heavy rains, causing destruction, uprooting trees, and damaging properties around Ghana's international airport in Accra. In September 2023, the Akosombo Dam in Ghana experienced a controlled spillage due to heavy rainfall, resulting in the worst flooding. This flood displaced over 26,000 people in the Volta region, caused extensive property damage, including homes and farmlands along the banks of the River Volta, and disrupted essential services in the affected areas. Climate change results in more intense rainfall, which increases the chances of flooding on Earth. As temperatures rise, the atmosphere's capacity to hold moisture increases approximately 7% more for every 1 degree Celsius of warming. Additionally, climate change amplifies the occurrence of extreme weather events, including stronger heat and dry conditions, resulting in parched soils. Parched soils increases the risk of flash flooding when it rains.
Some of these low-lying areas, which are waterlogged, are very prone to flooding. And you can see that, especially in the greater Accra region, that's what we call the Accra Plains. They are flat and drainage becomes a problem. So with the little rain, you see that the whole area is flooded, and that becomes a challenge because percolation, or penetration of water into the ground, is restricted. For that matter, it is always better that in such areas, in developing them, the drainages should be properly designed and constructed and calculations made to be able to take the volumes of water that will come from the rainfall, so that we don't have the situation where we have flooding here and there, and also people must desist from developing in waterways so that the flow of water can be easy and we can reduce the amount of flooding that we record every year.
In terms of climate change, relating it to the temperatures, on record we have some stations that has ever reported 43 degrees Celsius. We have some stations also that has ever reported 45 degrees Celsius over the north. But when you glance through the data, the maximum that dominates is between 38 and 40 degrees Celsius. But there are years that we have some variations, either up or a little bit below that. If you move to the middle sector too, they also have +1 or 2 in terms of the increase in the temperatures over their area. Likewise, Greater Accra. But most of the time, what normally contributes is how we are closer to the sun, and then also the water bodies that we find ourselves surrounded with. Once there is evaporation and it's water vapor, we know it is the heat that is generating that water vapor, and so we have the heat in there. So also add up to it to make the environment a little bit uncomfortable for us.
Studies show that three main types of flooding happen as a result of rainfall. These are pluvial flooding, known as surface water floods, fluvial flooding or river floods, and coastal flooding, often caused by storm surges.
And those are major floods we have within our sector in Ghana. But there are other forms. Somebody will say coastal flood, somebody will talk about urban flood. But urban flood is almost like the flash flood. And it happens normally when the surface is paved and then you don't have enough drainage system. And so the water is available on the surface because flood. And then, of course, the sea level rise where there's a lower coast. The sea level rises a bit and inundates the coast that is nearby. And of course, there are rivers that overflow their brink. We just remembered the recent, Volta River.
We have the water bodies that we all know, the lakes, the streams, the ocean. We have them, as the sun heats, they evaporate. It goes into the atmosphere and then it forms clouds. Once the clouds are matured, it starts to fall as rain. And if it falls as rain, we have some that percolate into the soil and then go into the underground water table. And then we have some that comes as runoff that we all know that some results into floods. All these things also go back into the oceans or the river band or the rivers and the streams that we have.
Ghana experiences flood disasters every year, resulting in loss of lives and property. In urban areas like Accra and Kumasi, floods are triggered by seasonal rainfall, and it is predicted that flood risk will get worse as rainfall classified as heavy is projected to increase between 2010 and 2050.
Three major you would be hearing of: the north, the Wotan Basin, and then the Greater Accra. But Kumasi has emerged a lot, and it comes with so many economic challenges. And sometimes the economic loss is not just the money, but the time that people would have to be relocated, people would have to, even the socio-economic cost, the stress, the emotion. All this, if you want to quantify them, is a lot of loss to the people of Ghana.
Every year comes with variations when it comes to the rainy season, likewise the dry season. Last year too, we also had the dust all over the country. Visibilities were less than 200 meters over most areas. But then this year, some areas reported 100 meters. And this case was in foggy conditions, not with the dust alone. So we have variation. So definitely, if you say the first share of the climate change or the climate variability, it has been with us every year. And this year, the rainfall season will still have its first share.
The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, report indicates that between 2015 and 2020, Ghana recorded 1,446 flood events, which caused 309 injuries and 510 deaths, and 54,744 houses being inundated, and the destruction of 436,563 acres of farmlands. Between 1970 and 2019, Africa recorded economic losses of around $38.5 billion due to floods and storm disaster.
We all had a common attribute of climate vulnerability. We are all suffering from the effects of climate change, and we all have had telling effects of climate effects on our economies.
The scientists have disclosed that climate change could cause more earthquakes and volcanic eruptions by increasing the weight of water on the Earth's crust. When glaciers melt, the water can seep into crack in the earth crust, causing them to widen and weaken.
They are not very strong. In terms of strength, they are not. What they rather have is they have plains. And because they have plains, with a little saturation, they slip. And that is the thing we experience up that range. Sometimes you hear that the slopes are filled and they are even blocking the road. Because as water percolates through these weak zones, it will definitely fail.
People say hurricane intensity, storm tornadoes increase because of climate change. People also indicate that earthquake, because of the reaction, formation of or the occurrence of climate change, is as a result of some heat. Without heat, earthquake cannot happen, but it indicated that earthquake can also increase.
Statistics showed that Asia, Europe, America, Africa, and the Red Sea have experienced thousands of earthquakes due to high levels of seismic activity. The data shows that Ghana has not been spared by the earthquakes. On 24th June 2020, an earthquake with a magnitude of 4.0 struck 17 kilometers, 11 miles of the epicenter. Upon lives in Kaswa and Nana Kwame also lives in Accra, the two shared their terror about the devastating effects of climate change.
Of course, I've been living in this residence for the past 15 years, and we have been experiencing earthquake occasionally. Last year, when it happens, most of the buildings cracked, and it was very, very dangerous. We are also facing these flood issues, which is also another big problem to us.
If care is not taken, climate change will wipe all living things on this earth or planet.
Places like these areas are prone to earthquakes due to seismic activity. A geological survey has revealed.
One of the mandates of the authority is to advise on geohazards. And if we are talking about geohazard, it means hazards that are emanating from the geology of the area. For example, it's a hill. The rocks there have formed a hill. It's the geology that makes the area. We know that if it's a hill, depending on the type of rock, the slopes of the hill may not be stable. Some rocks are competent, others are not. So if it's a competent rock, yes, failure may not be an issue. But if it's an incompetent rock, like let me take the Abri range, okay, where the rocks there are mostly the Togo series and the quartzites and schist and all those kind of rocks that are not very competent. The Weja area has been an area that it's been known, and geologically we've said it severally, that in terms of earthquakes, that is the most prone area to these natural occurrences.
The impact of seismic activity that causes an earthquake are beyond imagination. In the aftermath of flooding, higher water temperatures accelerate the growth of waterborne pathogens, which encourage the outbreak and spread of deadly diseases, including cholera and malaria, and the negative effects do not end there. where those affected struggled with their mental health. The fight against climate change requires collective action, from individual adaptation to global cooperation. Every step counts. Together, we can build a more resilient future for Ghana and communities around the world. Quick Bulletin reporting.